In this nugget, we get to walk through the solution for troubleshooting ticket number 9. Let's begin. So the word on the street is that PC1 cannot ping the internet server yet once again. Let's tackle this problem, and we'll start at PC1. So here at PC1, we'll do an IP space DHCP. We'll get an IP address assigned dynamically to us from R4, which is our DHCP server, and that is not working. You know what I didn't do, though, is I didn't bounce the VLAN 10 interface on DSW1. Let's go ahead and do that for good measure. So we'll go into interface VLAN 10 on DSW1. We'll do a shutdown. Then after a few moments, we'll bring it back up with the no shutdown command. Let's go back to PC1. And here on PC1, let's do the IP DHCP again. And it's got the same result. So it's got nothing to do with some kind of anomaly with the VLAN 10 interface. Let's look at our topology and make some decisions about what this possibly could be. The port on access switch 1 that PC1 is connected to 1/11, there could be a problem with that. It could be shut down. Or it might be in the wrong VLAN where there's no DHCP server. We could have a trunk issue that's not carrying VLAN 10 traffic over to the distribution layer switches. Or if the trunks are okay, maybe the IP helper function on the distribution layer switches is not set up correctly. Or if it is, maybe there's no reachability over to the loopback address on R4, which is what the IP helper is set to forward to. Or over here on R4, maybe the DHCP pool isn't configured, or is having some other type of a problem. So we have a whole boatload of little issues that could be causing this PC not to get an IP address from its DHCP server. So let's go to ASW1 and take a look at the details on the switch, the access layer switch, to make sure that those details on ASW1 are in order. So here on ASW1, let's do a show interface status, and that reveals that FA1/11 is connected. It's assigned to VLAN 10, and that looks okay. And to narrow it down to being a DHCP issue specifically or not, what we could do is we could go back to PC1 and we could just hard code an IP address with IP 10.2.1.10/24, tell it to use .254 as a default gateway, which is the HSRP address on DSW1. And then we could verify whether or not that default gateway is reachable, 10.2.1.254 with a ping, and it is. So that confirms that our trunks are working between ASW1 and DSW1. At least they are for VLAN 10, which is what we're focused on right now. So while we're here, let's go ahead and do a ping out to 209.65.200.241, which is the internet server, and that's working too. I guess problem solved. Well, the problem actually is that DHCP still isn't working. Even though we have a static IP address and we can reach out to the internet, the trouble ticket is probably looking for us to solve the DHCP issue. But at least we now know that the fault domain is DHCP related. That's the technology involved. So let's work our way out from PC1. If we did a DHCP discover in VLAN 10, that would be seen by the VLAN 10 interfaces on our distribution layer switches. So if we go out to DSW1, and here on DSW1, if we did a show IP helper address, we can just verify that the IP helper function is configured correctly here on DSW1. And this is right here for interface VLAN 10. The helper address is 4444, which is great. That's the loopback address on R4. We probably ought to make sure that's reachable. So let's do a ping of 4444. We'll also source it from our VLAN 10 interface. That'll help guarantee that R4 has reachability back to that VLAN 10 subnet. And it does. So reachability isn't the issue between the IP helper and the DHCP server. So next, let's go take a look at the DHCP server, which is R4. And on R4, let's issue the command show IP DHCP pool. Okay, so there's two pools configured. We have one called subnet 10, one called subnet 20. The pool named subnet 10 has the range of 10.2.1.1 through 10.2.1.254. Has 0 leases currently, excluded 254 out of a possible 254. So what that implies is that the exclusion that's done in global config for DHCP is excluding every possible address in the range. So let's get a peek at that. We'll do a show run pipe include DHCP. So any line that in the running config that has DHCP part of it will show up in this output. And look at that. IP DHCP excluded address 10.2.1.0 all the way through 10.1.2.254. Even though the DHCP server would never hand out 10.2.1.0 because that's the network address, That's an address where all the host bits would be zeros, so it wouldn't hand that out. But in any event, it's been excluded by this statement. So let's correct that. By going into global config, we'll say no IP DHCP excluded dash address, range starting at 10.2.1.0 and ending at 10.2.1.254. And just for good measure, we're going to hit the up arrow key a couple times and do a show command just to verify that it took. And sure enough, it took. So we have the exclusion for 10.2.1.0 through 10.2.1.5, but it's not excluding .6, .7, etc., all the way up to the high end of .254. We could also issue a show IP DHCP pool just to get another warm fuzzy that it does have some IP addresses to hand out. So up here for the 10.2.1 subnet, sure enough, it has 5 that are excluded out of a total pool of 254. And that looks much, much better. So let's go back to PC1. And on PC1, we'll hit the up arrow key a few times for IP space DHCP, hoping for good success with getting an offer, making a request, and getting an acknowledgement back, all being proxied through the IP helper function on either DSW1 or DSW2. And that looks great. Let's also verify that we can do a ping to 209.65.200.241. And now we're doing it using a DHCP assigned IP address. In trouble ticket number 9, the fault domain was R4. The technology was a DHCP pool where the entire range of the pool was excluded. And the fix was modifying that exclusion so that it had at least one address to hand out to a client who needs an IP address. I am glad that you joined me for this solution nugget for trouble ticket number 9. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.